Hey everyone, it's Mace1370. The season for RTA has just ended and the frames have come out, so we're going to go ahead and collect those. I was able to end Legend, and let's go ahead and take a look. Here we have the background, here is the Legend frame, and here is the Arbiter Veldred skin. Very exciting. So I actually did something different this season. Usually I play on last day, but this time I wanted to try to climb the day before. And I was actually able to do that. I think this frame looks really good with the new hero. Yeah, that looks pretty sick. So I can show you here. This was my ranking yesterday. I think approximately 24 to 36 hours before the end of the season. I don't remember exactly when. Actually, it shows right here, 22 hours and 15 minutes. So I was able to push up to here. I think at this time it was around 150 points above the cutoff, maybe a little more. And so most people, thought that this was probably a safe spot. So I just watched the ranking throughout the day, and I ended up at rank 39 at the end of the season period. I think I was still like 30 points above the cutoff, maybe like 20 to 30 points above. So that was, a good estimate. So I thought what I would go through today is I'll show my battle log. I was smart and I made sure to record it this time. And then we can, go through those matches, and after that I will review the different heroes I used to make the climb. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alrighty, so let's go over my battle log for the last 10 fights of the Conviction season. So the first fight here is against Kukerbot. You can see that we both pre-banned Bellion. So Bellion was actually my pre-ban for the entire season. I thought it might change with the balance patch and the new hero coming out, but actually nothing changed. I still pre-banned Bellion the entire time. The reasons are several. First of all, my playstyle is that I like to start off very flexible and then have the option of flexing either into a standard draft, like an aggro draft, or even a cleave. And Bellion really stops you from cleaving because a lot of my heroes are on book, and if she comes out, she's kind of a must-ban. It kind of kills that aspect of my playstyle, like flexing into cleave. It's really hard to do that if Bellion's on the field. So we take her off for that reason. Another reason is that she's just one of these casino RNG units, so I'm going to try to remove as much RNG as possible from the game. I want to be as consistent as I can be, and having units like Bellion, as an option, make it less consistent. The last is, if I flex into standard, I really like having Spectre Tenebria as a kind of middle DPS pick. If Bellion is pre-banned, Spectre is really strong in like the 3-4 slot, but it is hard to take her if Bellion's on the table, because then you just have to basically say, like, if I'm taking her this early, I'm committing to banning Bellion in the 3-4 slot, and that's not very good. So that's kind of my reasoning for why I've been pre-banning Bellion. So given that, I'm first pick here, and I was first picking Conquer Lilius every single time on the last day if she wasn't pre-banned. I think that she was my best first pick. I really like taking her. The reason why is because she plays well with everybody, right? You can fit her into a cleave team, you can fit her into a standard team, she can be with everybody. There are other very reasonable first picks. I saw a lot of people first picking like Piera, a lot of people first picking Apoc Ravi, and anything outside of those probably lend to a more specific playstyle, right, where they aren't being as flexible. So I liked taking Conquer Lilius because I could take Pyra with her, I could take Ran with her, and have two of the openers. But if I take Pyra first and they take Conquer Lilius, I don't always want to take Ran. There are some cases where you will, but having both of those is only for specific scenarios, right? But Conquer Lilius always works well with everybody. So I take her first. He takes Steny and Politis. Politis is pretty annoying. So many people are building her on Crown. It was super obnoxious. Apoc Ravi and Delibit are my follow-up. If I can get Apoc Ravi, I pretty much always take her. I can think of very few circumstances where I wouldn't take her. So Apoc Ravi is my second pick. She's just basically overpowered. Then I take Delibet. She's really good. She's actually kind of the shining star of the patch notes. Like, everybody thought that maybe Solitaria or Celine would be really strong, but it turned out Delibet was the best one. She's basically just one of these free cleansers. So she's really good into Politis, right? She can just cleanse the stuns away. You don't have to worry about activating Politis to cleanse. That's very important. A lot of the cleanse units like Maid Chloe or Amelia, they get punished by units like Politis or Green Celine and stuff like that. And so having the ability to cleanse as an attack skill is really powerful. Dilibet can also dish out some decent damage, which is really nice, so it gives me a little bit of reach for Steny. I think at this point he thought I was cleaving, so he took Troublemaker Crozet, and then he took ML Celine, which I really didn't see her very much. She's really hard to use. So I took Closer Charles and then Rimuru. He last picked AOL. My thought process behind Closer Charles and Rimuru is that I have a speed lead with Conqueror Lilius, and he hasn't taken really anything super fast. His ML Celine might be fast, but those are rarely over like 260 or 270. It's just impossible to get them beyond that with damage. My Closer Charles is like 283 or something like that, maybe 281, I don't remember. But I'm confident that he'll outspeed the ML Celine very easily. Additionally to that, he is a speed lead that I can use to attack buff my team without activating Politis, which is really nice. And then I take Rimuru because he's Rimuru, he's really OP, and he gives me an option of one-shotting the green Celine. So basically the way this match played out, I banned Politis because I didn't want to activate her with Conqueror Lilius if he left that in, but he banned it, so it was kind of an even trade. My Charles took the first turn, I pushed my team up, and then, let's see, did his ML Celine get a turn? I don't think it did. I think Charles procced AOL, and then AOL debuffed my team, which procced Dilibet, which then pushed up my team, and then I killed his ML Celine, and then the Crozet, and then Steny fell soon thereafter. So that was the first game. Okay, next up, this game is against KJ. Some people call this person, he's a popular streamer on the Korea server. They call him Korean Jesus because people joke that he wrote the RTA Bible because he's such a successful player. So he's pretty well known. He's a very strong RTA player. He gets first pick, and this time he is pre-banned AOL, and he takes the Conqueror Lilius, so I don't get that. When somebody has taken Conqueror Lilius, I immediately take Pyra. She's like my second go-to. She's generally faster than Conqueror Lilius, and then she can also put Unbuffable on the enemy team, which is really strong, since Conqueror Lilius, one of her big advantages is that she can put Vigor on your team. And if she can't do that, she's really not as impactful. So Pyra is a very good pick into her. Next up, in this pick 2 slot, I would either take Apocalypse Ravi or Rimuru. Here, I think Rimuru is actually a little bit better because AOL is pre-banned. If AOL was not pre-banned, I would take Apoc Ravi, but because AOL is off the table, I think Rimuru is really good. Then he takes Solitaria and Dilibet. Solitaria is a really interesting pick. I didn't really see very much of her on my final climb, but KJ is known for taking kind of wacky units that are a little strange. So he's taken a debuff unit, actually 2 debuff units with Conqueror Lilius, so I need to take ML Cowrick here. He's kind of the other OP cleanser, right? You have Dilibet and ML Cowrick. And if your opponent has debuffs, you really want to try to get one of those in your draft. And then I take the Apoc Ravi. I think Apoc Ravi is a good pick here, although it does leave Steny open to him. The reason Apoc is good here is because all of his team is very low damage at this point, and that's where Apoc really excels. Dilibet can never kill an Apoc. Like, if you ever have Apoc against Dilibet, like, you're going to win 99.999% of the time. Likewise, Solitaria is just really going to do kind of meaningless chip damage to Apoc. And as long as I have a cleanser on my team, then I can pretty much guarantee that, my Apoc will get value. He takes Steny and Remnant Violet. Both of these are pretty scary picks. They're high damage. They're tricky to, kill. Steny I don't have any reach for, and then Rylet is, just big damage, right? So I take Ida last. This gives me a little bit more reach for Steny, which is nice. So I have that as an option. Because my Pyra will pretty confidently take turn 1, I'll be able to CR boost Ida up, which will give me the turn. I can soul burn her and kill Steny and probably, honestly, Solitaria as well. And then do serious damage to the rest of the team, since he doesn't have any mitigation. So I was fairly certain he was going to ban out the Ida there. I decided to ban Conqueror Lilius because I didn't want to give his team Vigor. Vigor on Remnant Violet is super scary, like that will one-shot things. But I have Super Aureus with Pyra, so if I take away Vigor, then Rylet's going to be a lot less impactful. Furthermore, my team is not super high damage in and of itself, since I'm assuming my Ida is going to get pre-banned. And I feel like I don't have a ton of time because there's a Stenny on the other end of the field, right? I don't want to give him time to build up souls and then just like kill stuff. So I want to get through his team as quickly as possible, so I don't want to give defense to his team. So that was kind of my reasoning. This played out fairly predictably. You know, I was able to kill the Dilibet, you know, pretty quickly with my Rimuru, since Dilibet, you know, can push up and then she has to basically proc Rimuru. She doesn't have a choice because she gives herself defense buff. Solitaire didn't really do a whole lot in this case because I had Hand Guy, so then it was just a matter of bursting down, you know, Rylait before he could kill anything, and we got there. Here's game 3. I'm not super familiar with this player. I think I did run into them a few times in the final day though. They have first pick. They've pre-banned Stenny, which may or may not be a target ban. I can't really remember. They first pick Conqueror Lilius, so here the standard response is Pyra and Apoc Robbie. Pyra again puts the unbuffable, you know, and outspeeds, and then I think Apoc is better than Rimuru here because AOL is still on the field. The opponent takes ML Cowrick and LQC. LQC is a good hero against Apoc Robbie, but you really need to pair LQC with ML Cowrick, because if the opponent has ML Cowrick, it's very easy to, you know, attack break the LQC and just control her. And it's really hard to use her if the opponent has ML Cowrick, so you kind of have to pair the two together. You don't have to take them like back to back, but if the opponent has ML Cowrick, it's hard for you to draft LQC. So I take Ran and Summertime Asaria. I think that this opener by the opponent is pretty cleavable. They only have 2 spots that they can respond to the cleave, right? So we're assuming that they're going to take like 2 casino units or like a casino and a mitigation or something like that, and we can ban out 1. And generally speaking, if you know you're going and you're cleaving with this type of style, if they only have 1 problematic unit, you're generally fine. It's just when they have 2 that you run into trouble, right? So if you have to let like Rem and Violet through, then you might have a bad time. But if just one of them gets through, then you're usually okay. So I last pick J-Kisei here and ban out the Rem. And I think that this is the correct ban. My J-Kisei is pretty fast. She's like 270 and she's on Symbol of Unity. So I think she's usually a very strong pick into Violet. The reason why, Symbol of Unity gives her a very good chance of hitting, right? Because Violet has 55% evasion, Symbol of Unity has 20% hit chance, so there's only a 35% chance you're going to miss him. Her S3, if it hits, has then 3 strip attempts and resets. So if you hit that 65% chance to hit him, then you're probably going to reset him. And if he's reset, he loses his evasion, so all he has is Dreamblade at that point. And it's very strong. She can also defense break. She's also a Caesarea activator because she's built faster than Summertime Asaria, who's at like 260. So she's a very good pick in this spot. He bans out the Summertime Asaria, so I'm left with Pyra, Ran, Apoc Robbie, and then J-Kisei. We can basically see what happens here just because these 2 outspeed Lilius. They put immunity on my team, they defense break his team, and they put unbuffable on his team, and then my J-Kisei goes and basically wipes them. Unfortunately, I think every single fight my J-Kisei missed on Violet on the final climb, which is pretty hysterical. Everyone in the guild was laughing about it. But even though she missed on him, I still won because you have so many opportunities to hit him, right? Because once the rest of his team is dead, his Violet has to, you know, get through Apoc and J-Kisei, right? And then there's a good chance that Apoc can, you know, finish one of these off with her skill 3 to bring back, you know, a unit with skill null, etc. So it's a lot for Violet to get through. It can happen, but it's like 1 in like 30 games or something he'll actually solo you. So this was game 3. For game 4, I faced this Asia player with a Dilibet rep. I think this person actually got Hall of Fame, maybe. They might have gotten the number 3 Hall of Fame spot. It's hard to tell with the name, but they have first pick here. FCC's pre-banned by them. They take Conquer Lilia, so we can see the standard opener from the previous matches, right? And then they take Rimuru and ML Cowrick, which is a combination that makes a lot of sense because, you know, you saw the AOL on the field and ML Cowrick, you know, basically completely prevents that from happening. Then I take Spectre Tenebria, so this is what I'm talking about with the Bellion pre-ban. It lets me safely take Spectre here. If Bellion was still on the field, then Spectre is maybe not a great choice, and it feels to me like it puts me in a position where I have to take a unit that's easily countered in this spot. So it's nice to be able to take Spectre here. And then I take Politis. I think she's good because, you know, he has ML Lilius and also, you know, ML Cowrick, so a lot of potential activators for Politis here, and then he ends up with Huayang and Fire Cowrick. I take Jaekisei, and this was kind of a tough spot. You know, looking back on this draft, I lost, and the reason why is because his Fire Cowrick outsped here. I think I might have had to... I was thinking maybe if I took Acid, then Acid would kill Fire Cowrick, but then that would proc Rimuru, and it would give his team like evasion, I think, right? So that's not great. And then Rimuru and Huayang would basically destroy my Apoc Ravi. Potentially if this doesn't cut... Well, I guess I wouldn't have Jaekisei, right? Because I would have Acid there. Interesting. Yeah, this is tricky. I think I was basically hoping that my Jaekisei would outspeed. I think Jaekisei is the better hero here if she outspeeds. So it kind of just comes down to that, I guess. Yeah, so just, I guess, a gear check. Because if Jaekisei goes first, she resets basically his entire team, and then they don't do anything. And then we can pick them off as we choose. So this just came down to a speed check. Game 5 is against Larberry. I know that his speed gear is better than mine, so here's a scenario where I will not take Conqueror Lilius, so I take Pyra here. It just gives me a better chance of taking turn 1 than if I pick Conqueror Lilius. I also don't want to give him access to it because I can't outspeed it, right, if he takes it. So he takes Ran and Designer Lilibet. This is, I think, kind of a if you can't beat it, use it mentality, where people that want to use Ran just take the Dilibet with him, because typically she can, you know, if the opponent has Dilibet and you have Ran, it's really hard for you to utilize him because she'll just cut to the front and then cleanse away his debuffs. So let's see, I take Politis and Apoc Ravi. Politis is kind of a, you know, just don't cleave me pick, and then Apoc is a strong solo carry. He takes Fallen Cecilia and Spectre Tenebria. Both are good picks, so he's kind of flexing out into a more standard draft. Spectre, I don't have a ton of reach for other than Politis. So I take ML Cowrick and Landy. I actually rebuilt my Landy on the last day. I put her on 260 speed with, you know, damage and just a teeny bit of bulk. And the thought process there is that she's kind of a gap unit where she can, or a bridge, I should say, not a gap. She's a bridge unit. So if my Pyra goes, then I have Landy following up at 260 to kind of pull the rest of my team up and maintain, you know, control of the, you know, aggression of the fight. And he takes Carrot last. So I think he might have assumed I was banning Carrot, but I think because I'm pretty confident I can, you know, kill some things here, I just leave it in and ban out the FCC. So this way, you know, I can initiate with Pyra or Landy. He has Ran, but it doesn't really matter if Ran goes because my Landy's going to go in between everything else. And if he bans Landy, then I have ML Cowrick to cleanse away the Ran debuffs. So that was kind of my thought, was he may take turn 1, but I'm taking the middle before the rest of his team goes. So I don't really care if Ran goes. And that's what happened. Ran went, debuffed my team. I just activated Pyra's skill 3, and then I activated Landy, soul burning her with the book from Politis. Another reason I pre-banned Bellion is so that I can run book on everything. And then a double, you know, skill 3 from Landy was able to wipe out Spectre, Ran, and almost killed Dilibet, and then Carrot can't kill Ravi, right? So that was the game. Okay, this game was a disaster. So it's a Kree server player. He bans ML Cowrick. I have my standard opener. His opening is Pyra and Huayang. I've taken Apoc and Dilibet here. The Dilibet is to cleanse away the debuffs from Pyra to allow my Lilius to put Vigor on my team. You know, because if Pyra uses her skill 2 to put Unbuffable on everyone, it's enough debuffs to push Dilibet up, and then she cleanses the rest of the team, and then Lilius goes, right? So he takes LQC and Amelia. LQC is a safe pick here because ML Cowrick is pre-banned. Amelia is a little scary because she's a 260 unit, and so she's going to be able to gap right in between my opener and the rest of my team at this point. So that would allow him to like boost up LQC or Huayang and then just one-shot my Apoc Ravi, basically. Amelia became very popular on the last day for this purpose. You know, with all of these openers, you really want to have something that kind of like bridges your team and, you know, makes it a cohesive unit. So that was like Amelia, 260 Landy, stuff like that. So I take Ida and Jaikise here. Ida is another one of those kind of like bridge units because she CR boosts herself, and then she like CR, push backs the enemy team and then boosts yours up and like stuns everyone, and Ida's ridiculous. It's pretty insane. And so when you have openers like Conqueror Lilius and Pyra that have non-attack skills, you're essentially like building your Ida with 300 plus speed, and it's really silly. So I take Ida there, and then Jaikise as a 270 unit. I'm pretty sure that Jaikise will outspeed the enemy team here. And then I assumed I could ban last if necessary. He takes FCC, and I ban out the Pyra. Looking back, I think this was... Maybe it was a bad ban on my part. He bans the Ida, which I guess kind of makes sense. So I'll tell you what happened here, given the current state of, the bans, is that I got, the first turn, I got my turn with Jaikise, I reset his Hwoyang and his LQC, and then I couldn't kill anything. It was ridiculous. I had to tunnel into whatever got the fewest resets, which I think in this case was... I think it was LQC. And no, you know what? I did kill her, but then I couldn't kill Hwoyang because she gives herself a barrier every turn, and then... Fallen Cecilia gives herself a barrier every turn, and holy cow, it was just terrible. So I think in retrospect, maybe I needed a different pick. Or I had to ban the FCC, one of the two. If I banned out the FCC, the worry is that he bans out my Lilius, and that's bad for me. Because then he takes the first turn with Pyra. He's able to skill... He can't skill 2 because of Dilibet, but he can put up his Aureus effect. I guess that's okay, and then my Jaikise goes. Yeah, I think FCC was probably the ban. So yeah, that's what happened. But Hwoyang is really good, especially if you can pair her with FCC. Like, it's really hard to kill her, I think, in those scenarios, especially against like these early meta picks like APOC and Dilibet, because neither of these units do a ton of damage. So her giving herself a shield every turn is like a ridiculous amount of sustain, especially when you pair her with other units that also sustain her. So that was that game. Game 7 was another loss. You can see another Hwoyang here. So we have a pretty standard opener, right? Lilius and then Pyra APOC. And I saw this response to an early APOC Ravi pretty commonly, where they take Hwoyang and then some unit to buff her, cleanse her, push her up, whatever. She's typically built around 240 speed, sometimes a little faster, sometimes a little slower, but generally around there. And so my kind of like response to that was, I need to take something that I can confidently take the turn before her, so I can boost up a DPS unit and kill her or something. But it's actually kind of hard to do. She's pretty tanky because she has that built-in 30% adamant shield effect, right? So I haven't figured out a great solution to this yet. Maybe the answer is a fast carrot. Like if you have carrot at like 260 speed, carrot, she's not critting her, so you don't have to worry about the adamant shield. And then Hwoyang generally has fairly low HP, so maybe a fast carrot would do it, like a 260 carrot or something, with like 4100 attack. So that's an option. So I took Amelia though to have the ability to boost something up. And then Ida, again, as a way to, cut in front of the Hwoyang and kill her. He takes Violet and FCC, so I take Steny. I think the way I lost this match was Lilius actually outsped my Pyra, so that was kind of a rip. I think if I got the first turn, I would have a decent shot because it would let my Ida push up, and then go from there. But either way, it ended up not working out, so that was that game. Okay, here's game 8. Pretty standard opener, right, with these units. He's taking the Steny here. I have the Dilibet for the Pyra. He then takes Troublemaker Crozet and Hwoyang. So I take AOL. I think AOL is good here because it prevents Hwoyang from using her skills. I can, probably outspeed with AOL, and then also, right, prevents Crozet from cleansing, gets rid of escort, etc. So I think AOL is a pretty good pick here. Then I take Landy. Again, I want like a bridge unit, something that lets me cut across. He bans the Landy, He didn't really have, I guess, a lot of reach for her is another point. So my AOL here was able to silence the Huayang long enough for me to kill her before she was able to destroy my APOC, and then it was just a matter of, chipping them down while getting value from Lilius. I think that Huayang is generally pretty hard to kill. She feels a lot harder to kill with FCC rather than Troublemaker Crozet, which is interesting. It's just like the extra barriers when you have these two, it's insane. Like they'll bash into her barrier, barely get rid of it maybe, and then she'll either take a turn or FCC will put the barrier back on before you can go again. So kind of annoying, but this one worked out. Okay, so for this game, you see the pretty standard opener, but here the opponent takes Archdemon Mercedes. Rimmer is pre-banned. So this, I think, Rimmer is a problem for ADS, right? Because he can typically one-shot her, so it makes sense that this person is pre-banning Rimmer if they're taking ADS this early. But this indicates a pretty slow draft, and I feel like if you play slow into ML Cowrick and ADS and Lilius, you're just asking for trouble, right? It just doesn't seem like a good idea. So I think you kind of have to go into a cleave draft from this position, or you're just going to get outvalued over time. So I take Ran, and then I take Summertime Iseria. He takes Designer Lilibet, and then ML Ball, and so I take Steny. He doesn't really have any reach for Steny, and I feel like he has to ban some part of my cleave, composition, right? If he doesn't ban like Summertime, then that's going to activate probably. I guess I do have to worry about Designer Lilibet, but I feel like it's still a problem for him since she can't cleanse the bombs. So yeah, I think that he has to ban probably Summertime here. He might also have assumed I was banning Designer Lilibet. It's kind of the only thing on his team that stops my cleave from activating, so it might have been a 50-50 ban, but either way, banning out the ADS here, and then I'm pretty confident that my APOC and Spectre Tenebria can solo, these two, right? So that's what ended up happening for that game. Okay, here's game 10, the final game of the season. So I get my Conquer Lilius for the first pick. The opponent takes ML Cowrick and Huayang, and just from the limited amount of playtime I had against this hero, it feels very much like you want to just take the first turn against her and try to kill her before she kills you, because she's going to blow up your APOC Robbie, basically. So I take Pyra here to kind of set up a potential cleave, and then I take APOC as a carry. He takes Designer Lilibet, and then he takes Ran. So I take J-Kisei and Ida. I think that's the correct choice here, since Designer Lilibet's going to trigger off debuffs, but neither Ida nor J-Kisei put debuffs on people, really. Maybe a few stuns from Ida, but generally not enough to proc the Lilibet, right? And then he takes Politis, which we just ban out, and I think that's the right choice. He has a Ran here, but he can't bridge, so even if he goes first, then it's not a big deal, since right, he's going to go, but then the rest of my team will go before his team does, because these have like natural speed. So I think in this case he might have even gone first, but it doesn't really matter. Pyra can trigger Ida goes, then J-Kisei goes, resets his team, and cleans up. So that was the game. We can go ahead and go over some of the units that I used. Okay, so I'm not going to do an entire account review. I mean, I've done that a few times before. I have all the units on my Discord if you want to check it out there. I will go over the units that I drafted, I guess with some regularity, and we can talk about those. I'll leave the stat thing open here just so you can see it as we scroll by. Didn't use Vildred once. Actually, that's a lie. I accidentally mispicked him once and then he got banned, so it was all part of the plan. Summertime Iseria, hugely important hero. She's still really strong, even though Designer Lilibet kind of nerfed that cleave. You can still fit it in every so often. 260 speed is really key to be able to cut things. You want at least 150 effectiveness and then as much attack as you can while maintaining about this amount of bulk, because you want to be able to take a couple counter hits, right? Didn't use Pavel. Ida was an all-star. You saw me draft her, right, multiple times in the last 10 games. She's really insane. Her kit is really overloaded. She's kind of like the new C-Dom, I think, because she's able to do a ton of damage and also, CR manipulate your team to give everyone their turn, and then boost herself on top of that. So kind of like C-Dom 2.0. 240 speed is, I think, a really good mark for her. It allows her to cut most things. I don't think I ever had a problem cutting things once I put her at 240. When I had her at 230, some things did cut me. So like really fast openers on the opponent team, I wouldn't get in front of at 230. But at 240, it was all fine. Once you get to 240, you basically just want damage. Here's Landy. I rebuilt her for a 260 speed build with just a bunch of damage and like a minimal amount of bulk. I got this number from Valk, the EHP, basically just to survive a Rimuru S2, or a single hit or something like that. And then beyond that, you just want damage, right, at 260. I think it was a pretty good change. It did come in handy a few times, especially since it seemed like a lot of people were building units at that, 240 mark, like Hwyong and stuff, and it was nice to be able to kind of gap over them. Here's Celine. Didn't really pick her. I did test her out a bit after the buff patch, and she kind of feels like a brain check unit. I remember reading her kit and thinking like, oh man, she's going to be so good into Lilius, right? Because you have the stealthy E here, and she'll, pop off and kill something, and then she'll hide in stealth. But every time I used her, people just like wouldn't use their skills, and they would just attack into her, and then she would die. So maybe I need to build her faster or something. I'm not sure. If they did use her skills, she was okay. The other problem I found was that I feel like I have a decent amount of damage on her, and it felt like she just didn't kill anything if they had like FCC or something. So that was kind of I was kind of underwhelmed with this unit. Milim, didn't really draft her, unfortunately. I do like Milim. I did draft Operator Sigrid a few times. Let's see, I think I nerfed her damage a teeny bit. She was at like 290 crit damage at this speed, and I think I had to move that gear to make the fast landy or something, but 270 is still kind of like where I like her. I would like to use the Wall of Order artifact, but it's only like plus 21 or something, so I just use Portrait instead. She's a really solid unit, and I think this is probably the minimal amount of damage you want on her. But 270 is nice because you get to outspeed things like Amelia's. Here's Jkise. She was a pretty big MVP. I did nerf her gear though. Yeah, she had... Yeah, exactly. Like, I think Landy took a lot of this gear. Yeah, like this ring is pretty nuts. Yeah, so her damage was higher. Well, actually, her damage was about the same, but she had more effectiveness. She had like 50 or 75 or something. So I had to nerf her to make the Landy. Yeah, so some of those pieces are different. But either way, 270 is as slow as I would want to go on her, and I like that speed mark with this amount of damage. You could consider moving her faster, but I felt like it was an extremely rare match where it mattered. Like maybe against that one guy who had the fast Calric, I would want a faster one, so I could see it being good there. But I like having the damage, because most of the times I was picking her, it was like later in the draft when I had already established a speed lead, and I was kind of like using her to like get above kind of a speedy DPS unit or something. Jkise big all-star. Drafted Charles like once. Yeah, I think like once in the final climb. But, he worked when I did, I think. 281 speed is probably the slowest I would want to go on him, because you kind of want to use him to take the first turn, right? It's just really hard to build him at that speed because he is kind of a turtle when it comes to his base speed. Here's Hwyong. This I don't think is like a final build on her. This is just gear I slapped on to try to test her at the last minute. She didn't really seem like she fit in my drafts that well, but looking at how other people were drafting her, I mean, she's definitely a strong unit, so I think I just need to experiment with her more and figure out how to fit her into my style. It seemed like when people took her, they weren't cleaving with her, they were kind of slowing down, right? They were saying like, I'm going to let you have the first turn, and then I'm going to come and kill you with Hwyong, basically. In terms of building her, I think 240 speed is probably the minimum I would want, and then 7k attack is the minimum attack, and then after that you want just bulk. But you don't want a ton of HP because her skill 3 it penetrates defense based on the difference between her HP, right? Or no, sorry, not the penetration, it's just the damage, I guess, but whatever. You want her to have like, this is probably the most HP I'd put on her. So that's Hwyong. Politis, did draft her a fair bit. Pretty standard build. Actually, I nerfed her as well for someone. Gosh, I don't even remember who. I did a little bit of fribbling at the end. you know, 212 speed and then like a little bit of bulk and some damage. It's a pretty standard Politis build. It's not like solely dedicated towards one role. I'm not like a dedicated cleaver, so I wanted to have a flexible build to be able to, you know, kind of play her in different styles. I didn't draft Rylet at all. I'd probably want to put a little bit more damage on him, to be honest, but I think this build's okay. I'm just not a huge, you know, Rylet player because he's kind of RNG. Right? You know, if he dodges, he's amazing. If he doesn't, you lose. I didn't use Celine. Here's one carrot I have. This is like the fast carrot. I guess I'd like her to have a little bit more bulk, but I think I fribbled a bit, and so I was just throwing random gear just to get it done so I could get into queue. And this is fine. Like 260 speed with like 4.1k attack is probably okay. You're just kind of using her again to like take the first turn against those like squishy like 240 units, right? And then you just pop them. Eras, he's a PvE unit. Mediator Cowrick drafted like all the time. He was pretty crazy. He's, you know, kind of made fun of and claimed to be OP for a reason. So my build might be a little bit different than how some people have him built. I think a lot of people build him at 250 to 260 and just like pure bulk. Mine might look a little squishy, but I have some effect res, and then the reason why is because I can flip him over to self-imprint if I need to, and now he has over 100 ER. So there are, you know, people that draft things like J. Kisei into him, like I do to other people, and having effect resistance is really nice because this amount of ER generally lets me resist in a lot of circumstances, especially if I'm bringing him with a unit that has an ER imprint or something, and I can get him to like 150. It prevents the reset, and I felt like that was more value than just giving him a little bit more bulk. But I think honestly it was mostly just like that's the gear I had for him to get him to this speed. So that's how he worked out. Here's my Spectre Tenebria. I did draft her a lot. She has pretty premium gear. I'm still a big fan of the lifesteal build. I know a lot of people are doing like the glass cannon speed build, but like I take this Spectre into cleave all the time. Like I use her as a cleave unit, and there is, you know, a rare occasion where I will wish she had more damage, like I just can't kill something, but the number of times that lifesteal has made the difference is pretty huge. You know, it allows you to survive that Dilibet S3 and kind of like heal back up before she can do it again. It's just so valuable for preventing her from just dying to like repeated chip damage. So I advocate for the lifesteal build. Let's see, didn't use these guys. FCC hasn't changed in a while. I have effectiveness on her. I did change Rimuru. I added a little bit more damage to him and dropped his defense. So he had like 200 less attack and like 150 more defense, I think, and he might have been a little slower. And I think he had a little... maybe the crit damage was the same. But Rimuru, a very popular pick. Super strong hero right now. Yeah, he's pretty absurd. Basically, the way the buffs affected the meta was it made the Caesarea cleave a little bit weaker, a little harder to cleave people, and Rimuru really shines in like an aggressive comp, and that kind of like took over, because before, like whenever I would see someone pick like, you know, ML Cowrick Rimuru, I'd be like, okay, they're getting cleaved, and now it's harder to do that, right? So Rimuru kind of went up in value towards the end. Here's AOL. Changed her build, slowed her down so that she would go after ML Cowrick just to kind of screw their turn order. Gave her, I think, more bulk and like a bunch of effectiveness. Okay build. I honestly didn't draft her that much. Here's Solitaria. I don't think I drafted her a single time. I think I would actually redo her build, honestly. I think if I was going to use her, I would put effective resistance on her, as kind of troll as that sounds, because you kind of want to get her to like this 270 to like 280 speed mark is fairly easy to do at this level with the type of gear that I have. You know, because she's getting like hand-me-down speed pieces, right, that you're using before you rolled the better ones. And she doesn't need really that much bulk, I don't think. So I think putting ER on her is nice when you have all these like 310 openers that debuff zooming around. So if you can get like 100 to 150 ER on her, then it's hard for like Lilius to provoke her and stuff like that. I think that's the play I would do. But like she's kind of bad, so I just didn't use her. Here's Acid. I switched actually. He was using this gear, and then Ran was using this gear, and then I took Ran off of it because it's harder to use Ran right now. So Acid's back on this gear. It's just the speedy damage gear that I have. Sadly, with a stupid crit chance neck instead of crit damage, because the game refuses to let me run a crit damage speed neck. Here's Apoc Ravi. This build I was very happy with. It really carried me pretty hard. I picked her almost every game. Has extremely high gear score gear. And, this build kind of... I got to this build after playing a bunch of different, variations on her. I was trying, the fast build at, 230 with, a lot less HP and more damage, on, Comet. I've tried... I think I even tried a counter build for a little while, didn't like that. Finally ended up on this one. And over time, I kind of slowed her down a little bit more and more and more and just gave her more and more bulk. I would like to have more crit damage, but very happy with the overall stat line here for the most part. I think the reason why having her built this way is important is because she performs pretty well in almost all circumstances. She can work in cleave teams and bruiser teams, etc. But where she really shines is being a wall when you have a Stenny or something behind her, or you're doing a cleave and you put them in a position where they have to kill Apoc and they have to deal with your cleave. So having this super, super bulky version of her is pretty obnoxious for opponents to deal with. So I liked it a lot. LR Crow did not draft at all, but he's pretty good against Amero, so consider building him for that. Here's Carrot number 2. She is on a pretty standard build, I think, as far as, bruiser carrots go. Ruel didn't draft. Here's Troublemaker Crozet number 1. He is, I didn't draft this guy on the last day, but I did actually draft him a couple times, in the last couple weeks. I just wanted a build of him that had super high effect resistance, because I was experimenting on how to deal with Caesarea Cleave, and I thought this might be a way to do it. It worked okay the couple times I did it. It can be tricky if they have Politis as well. But this build is nice because my thought was I'd pair him with my Maid Chloe, and I'll show you her down here, but she gives a lot of ER, right? So I have him on this Bastion of Hope artifact, which still isn't max because it takes forever to get these, but he's getting a lot of ER from this, plus he gets the ER from Maid Chloe, so he'll be over 300. So he's a nice cleanser to use against debuff teams. Here's Pyra. Not much to be said about her. She's really fast and has some effectiveness and some bulk. Drafted her quite a bit. She's stupid strong. I think if you can get her to 310, that's the sweet spot. Here's Troublemaker Crozet number 2. This is more of an anti-cleave one, like a damage type cleave. I liked him on Bastion because... I guess so. Before, people were running Flan a lot, and so I had him on Bastion for that. I think I'd honestly probably just put him on Holy Sack now, because people stopped running Flan as much. It was nice to have immunity, on Aravi and stuff like that, against the Flan cleaves, but since they're not really running her, I guess Holy Sack is just better. Other than that, it's the same build, I think, as before. You kind of want just fast speed with bulk, so that he's able to cut. Ball, I actually drafted a couple times, just against cleavers. He's pretty standard, around 230 speed with bulk, minimal ER to prevent random provokes. Here's Lionheart Cermia. She's on kind of okay gear. I think I was just trying this build out because I had her on that lifesteal build I showed in the video. This is the speed build I was experimenting with. I just wanted her to do more damage, and this feels better. So I think the answer is I just need to get a 450 gear score lifesteal build. My main criticism of that build when I was running it is that it just didn't do enough damage. It just didn't feel impactful. This damage feels impactful. So this is the damage I want to shoot for. So I think if you want to run lifesteal, you just have to have absurd lifesteal gear. Here's Maid. I changed her a bit to have higher ER because I wanted to make sure I resisted Caesarea teams and stuff. Not much to say about her. Alencia's on filler gear. Kind of never drafted her. Here's Archdemon Mercedes. I did draft her a few times, and she did her job. Her HP's a little bit low, but I like the damage on this build. You kind of want her around this EHP, maybe a little bit more, but I'm not really a counter gamer, and I kind of cringe whenever I pick her. Here's Conqueror Lilius number 1. She is MVP All-Star. Picked her almost every single time I could in the first pick position, as I mentioned. Just wanted her fast. A little bit of effectiveness is nice, and then as much bulk as you can get. She's absurd. Here's Ran. So I took him off the damage gear because I just didn't draft him as much, but I still wanted to be able to use him as an opener, so I put on just other speed gear. So he has some effectiveness. I actually ran effectiveness when I was kind of learning to do this Aceria cleave, and there are some matchups where it's really nice, right? Because you land the death breaks more consistently. But I think the damage build is better if you can get there. Violet, cringe. Cerise didn't pick. Here's Designer Lilibet. Did draft her a fair bit. I think 200 speed is a nice sweet spot for her. And then like 2.1k defense and then like 290 crit damage. Those numbers feel really good. And then you want a damage artifact on her, like Draco Plate or Portrait or something like that. Symbol is nice if you want to put that on her. And 15k HP is good. Like this EHP feels good. This Dilibet build overall feels pretty good. So I think this is the stat line you want to shoot for. Ravi RIP didn't pick her. Didn't pick this guy. This guy was geared but never picked him. Didn't pick Carmen actually. Here's Conquer Lilius number 2. She's like a high effectiveness build. I built this mostly as a meme because I think I pulled one randomly from like daily summons or something and I thought it would be funny. And I did pick it like in the last month against particular people that I knew ran high ER on different units, but pretty rarely picked her, to be honest. I pick her in Guild War quite a bit because you never know like when people in Guild War are going to run ER on stuff, and it's nice, like 270 is still fast enough to outspeed most things on Guild War unless you know it's like a speed team, right? Let's see, didn't pick those. Here's Amelia. Had her on a high ER build, and then I ditched it because I didn't like it. Having her at 261 was nice. I think actually, honestly, I'd like her at 270. I just didn't have the gear to get there. It's, you know, you have so many units now. It's hard to, you know, get everybody at the spot you want. She has like minimal ER, but I can switch her to her imprint and she gets a little bit better. And then with this, she's pretty close to... she's at like 135-ish, which is around where, you know, that's like some value, I guess. Should resist random provokes and stuff. But yeah, other than that, she's a very strong unit. Let's see. LQC I did pick. I like this build, but I'd like a teeny bit more crit. I think I need 76% crit, because then I could boost her turn 1 with Amelia and always crit a dark unit. So I think I need 4% more crit for that. Just need to get the gear, I guess. Bellion, obviously never picked her because she was pre-banned every single game. Didn't pick that, didn't pick this. Let's see, is that it? That might be it. Didn't pick Charlotte really much at all this season. This is a Wyvern's Angelica. Diane didn't pick, she's missing a ring. New Vivian skin is amazing. Let's see, Briarwitch Aceria, oh, is missing gear. I forgot to re-gear her, but I didn't pick her, so it didn't really matter. Let's see. This might be it. Yeah, I think that's it. So if you guys want to let me know in the comments how you did this season. I had a lot of fun playing. I'd be excited to hear how you guys did and if you liked it. So I think that'll be it for now. Later.